Welcome to the All Things Endurance podcast. I'm your host, Rick Prince, and I'm excited to have Nicole Dobransky on the call today, on our podcast today. She is a business growth coach for run coaches, and she's a founder and owner of Runner Rising. She's also a USCA running coach. This podcast I'm super excited for because one of the biggest things that we get from our coaches after they become coaches is what happens now. You know, they have the certification, they have the education, but and even they might have some business tools, they're really not quite sure where to start. I think there's so much noise in this space. So I think someone like Nicole that can kind of clarify all this and get some good information out there for any of our listeners, I think is amazing. So all that being said, Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise. So before we get going, obviously I gave a little bit of an intro, but maybe you could tell our listeners maybe a little bit more about yourself and why you started Runner Rising.
Yeah. So I'm Nicole. I'm a certified run coach. I'm also a certified endurance nutrition coach through USCA. And I'm a mom of three. I live in Encinitas, California, which is a coastal suburb in San Diego. And I actually started my career as a CPA, so certified public accountant. And honestly, from the beginning, I never loved it. I knew kind of after my initial internship, you kind of get wooed by these big four firms, and it's really exciting that it really wasn't the right fit for me. But I just went with it because I went that direction. And so I spent the first several years of my career not loving it. And then discovered running. So I'm an adult onset runner. I couldn't pass the presidential fitness mile test as a kid. I could do the pull up and everything, but I couldn't do the mile fast.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't have raw talent, but I do have a lot of hard work. I'm very determined and consistent runner. And proud to say that I finally qualified for Boston after many attempts, although still have yet to get in
Oh,
because of the
okay. Congratulations, though. That's huge.
Thanks. Running became a passion. I started a blog talking about my running back in the blog days, and it was really just a hobby. And I kept pursuing it. And this was before, things have changed so dramatically. This was back in 2011 that I started my blog and just kind of in the running space. And as I was working in my full-time job, doing it as a hobby. And I ended up, after I had my first daughter in 2015, that's when I became a coach and decided to start doing that as a side business, in part because on my maternity leave, I just was antsy and started sharing it. And people had always asked me about my results because I was also combining running with nutrition and with strength training. And I had a significant loss and body transformation and massive running transformation. And so I was sharing that and people were asking me about it. And so I was decided to start coaching people. Ultimately though, when I went back to work after my maternity leave and we were in like the grind of life with two full-time working parents outside the house, our daughter was in daycare. She was constantly getting sick. I remember my husband and we were so excited. We were both runners. He's not really a runner. He is still a runner, but not the way that I am anymore. But we signed up for our first half marathon. And then the stomach flu came through the daycare. And then first I got it, then he got it. And I remember we were sitting at the start line of this half marathon and he started feeling sick. And we were like, we're calling it. We just went home.
Yeah.
And it was so disappointing. And it just felt like this daycare situation was it was not the way we wanted to live our lives. Not to mention, I didn't love my accounting job and I was getting even more pressure to spend more time in the office. And it just wasn't where my heart was. So we made the decision actually for me to quit my job. And that's where the pressure of the business started to go on a little bit more. We were not financially set up to be thriving. I really needed to make some money. So I did another little side job and then also started coaching and ultimately got pregnant with twins. And luckily that all worked out because through the realizing after we had twins and my husband got laid off that there was pretty much no other option for me. I wasn't going to go back to accounting. That's when I got really serious about my run coaching business and my coaching, also doing fitness and nutrition coaching. And through that process is where all the growth happened, was where I invested in mentorship, where I learned to work on my mindset, which I realized was a huge component. I set up my systems. I'm big on systems. The accounting background helps on that. And I started helping other coaches learn how to build their business as well. But fast forward, now it's been 9 years since then, and I have my own business that's very thriving. I do a lot. I do one-on-one coaching, but I also do group coaching, which has allowed me to really leverage my time so that I can earn a great income while also being home with my kids when, they're all in school age now. But back then, that was really important. I didn't have time to work full time. And also founded Runner Rising, which I have a podcast that you will be a guest on. So excited for that. And I really love teaching and helping other people's. I've focused a lot on women, but I've had many men as well go through my program, but helping them find, make this a sustainable business beyond just the hobby of occasionally getting clients, and really use social media in particular to find those people that they can help and really scale their business to the point where it feels sustainable. It doesn't feel like you're constantly wondering where that next client's going to come from, and being worried when someone falls off and how are you going to replace it, and really feeling like it's something that's adding to your life and that you're able to ultimately impact more people when you're able to reach more people. So that's the long-winded version.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I will say, as the father to a 7-year-old, it's amazing. I don't think I appreciated before having a child what they're like little petri dishes. They bring home everything, and then everyone gets sick. I still don't know how even the whole, one or both parents, going off to work, even it works, because it's like, they're always sick. They're always so. I commend you for even getting as far as you did before doing your own thing. I mean, it's insane. It's so difficult. So I mean, that definitely is a catalyst I can see for, like you said, starting your own business. And aside from the fact that you weren't a huge fan of accounting at that point, but it's an amazing story.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it inspires someone, because I know early on when I was working full time and I was in those trenches, I was listening to a podcast, and there was a woman who talked about how she had been a school teacher and her baby was born, and she just had this vision of when her son was in kindergarten and he got off the bus, that she would be there to pick him up. And
Hmm.
she could never do that as a teacher because she was in her own classroom. And I just had this moment, because I'm a latchkey kid, and my mom, I took the bus home and let myself
Sure.
in, and that's actually where my weight gain started, and a lot of my self-esteem was diminished during that time. And so I just had this vision of like, no, we don't have buses here in
Right.
Encinitas, but I was like, I want to be there after school, but I'm very ambitious. I was like, I want to be doing things. I want to be growing a business and doing something I love during the time they're away, but I want to be able to be there when they get home. And so
Yeah.
hearing someone say that, and that they were able to do that, because again, this was back what I feel like it was kind of in the stage where like having an online business was kind of odd. Like you didn't, not a
Yeah.
lot of people had that. So it does help having someone, pave the way. And we can definitely talk later about how now there's so like, it's all, I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were talking about how there's like so many on social media, people telling you to do all these different things now, whereas back
Yeah.
then it wasn't like that. And now it's just overwhelming. So it's like,
Right. Exactly. It went from like almost zero to like a million
yeah.
overnight, it seems. Um, so having worked with as many coaches that you have, what do you find some of the biggest mistakes are that new and even seasoned endurance sports coaches might make as far as marketing their coaching business? Are there any things that kind of just stand out to you?
Oh yeah. There's so many.
Okay.
I would say the vast majority of people run coaches marketing aren't being strategic at
Okay.
all. And I do think that in the early days, like I mentioned, the blog days and the early growth of Instagram, a lot of people were having that influencer strategy where they're just sharing their own running and like they're attracting people with their own results. And some I've talked to people on my podcast who that still works for them, but I have had several clients and I've talked to podcasters who are saying it doesn't work like that anymore in the way that it used to. Not to mention, it is extremely hard to become an influencer now on social media. So that's really not the right approach. And you don't
Yeah.
need to be. So trying to be an influencer is not the route that I would
Okay.
recommend anyone go. You do need a social media presence, but it's really about positioning yourselves more as the coach and the authority. And then really understanding who your ideal, I call it your ideal athlete is, and being able to create content and marketing specifically for them.
Hmm.
So that would be like the number one mistake, is kind of thinking that you need to be an influencer and then probably getting overwhelmed and then not doing it because you think you have to do
Okay.
like a get ready with me. I've never done a get ready with me or what I eat in a day reel.
Right.
That helps. And then the second mistake I would say is not talking about their run coaching services clearly enough and often enough.
Hmm.
I think we're really afraid to be salesy or to sell, and that can come from a lot of different places: imposter syndrome, or just feeling like, it's salesy, right? You're uncomfortable. Like, we
Yeah.
became coaches because we want to help people, because we love running. We didn't become coaches to do marketing and sales, right? So that's just something that people just avoid. And then
Yeah.
they think that, mentioning, like doing a client testimonial, like a screenshot of someone's race and shouting them out is like a sale, is going to work. And it does in some ways. And I teach you how to use testimonials, but it's not the way that you're going to position yourself as an authority and get clients.
Gotcha.
So I think people just kind of avoid it. And then one other thing is, when they do talk about their coaching services, I often see people just highlight like what they're getting with the coaching, meaning
Hmm.
you're getting a weekly update to your schedule, and you're getting a, check-in from me. And they're not talking about the why. Like, why is someone going to hire you? Like, what do they desire? It's like marketing 101 is like the desire of what of the athlete. So, and I know we can't, that's another touchy subject. Another reason why I think it's important to get business advice from fellow run coaches is because we're not going to promise any results, right? So we can't
Yeah.
say that we're going to promise a PR, we're going to promise an outcome, but there are ways that you can speak to that person's desire and their struggles in a way that is authentic and helps them like trust you as their coach and want you to be their coach,
Yeah.
without promising things, of course, that we can't promise.
Right.
Yeah. So I wrote like a whole list of mistakes in preparation for this. The next one is, we'll talk a lot about this in future questions, but not niching down. So I do find that a lot of times run coaches think they're adding value by just posting generic tips about running. And we're in an age of chat GPT and AI and an information overload. And it's actually, more information is actually not creating value. So
Hmm.
adding more tips is not necessarily helpful, especially if they're just generic tips, right?
Yeah.
And some of the big accounts can do that. Like, but if you're coming in as a newer coach or as someone who hasn't established themselves, you really do have to niche down. And then the last one is comparing yourself to others and not trusting in your own expertise and your own guidance. And, I still struggle with this at times. There's so many conflicting voices on social media, and at the end of the day, you have to be confident in your approach and your methodology, your way. And you have to know, like, we're humble enough to know it's not always going to be right, and you can change based on research. Like, you do have to take a stance in some way.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid to like rock the boat or to like say what you believe because you're not sure it's 100% right, then you're just never going to say anything worth listening. No one's going to want to listen to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge one, is building your own confidence. And that can be baby steps with time, but like building your confidence in who you are and not comparing to what everyone else is doing.
Right. That's a great point. To that end, I love that quote, and I forget who said it, but it's was it comparison is a thief of joy? And
Yes.
I think that's so true, whether it be like, oh my gosh, Nicole has a 100 bedroom mansion and I'm living in a studio, or oh my gosh, you're doing this on your social media and you have 40 coaches and I only have two. I think you're right. I mean, and I think social media obviously makes that worse because it's always in front of your face. It's no one's ever posting, oh my God, I lost 12 clients today. That's horrible. It's always like, oh my God, I just qualified for Boston and I have 90 new clients at the same time. And you're like, oh God, I suck. Right? It's like,
Yeah,
it's so
exactly.
easy to fall into that, I'm assuming.
Yes, definitely. Although I don't feel like run coaches do share as much of those wins as some in the other business industry, where you see people really like touting their numbers and their income and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I do think that comparison, or just even like their content's so good. And like, that's
Right.
back to the influencer one, is like, if someone's an influencer and they're trying to get brand deals, they're spending way more time on that. They have the time to spend it. And we're
Yeah.
run coaches. We're spending time creating schedules and checking in. Like, we don't have time to create a reel for 5 hours. So, and you don't
Right.
need to. So it's like, you can't compare your content to that, because it's just not, unless you want brand deals too, but then that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on that is, again, I forget who said it, but someone, I think it might have been that Gary Vaynerchuk. He said, if you're not, I think he was talking about when you were first starting your business or putting out your first website or your first product. And he said, if you're not in some way, shape, or form embarrassed by your first product, then, you've waited too long. Just get it out there. Um, so one thing that, one phrase we hear a lot, certainly in regard to search engine optimization, but also just as far as just marketing and marketing is content is king. And I think that's especially true, or at least that term is used a lot in online marketing. Do you find that this holds true within endurance sports coaches, run coaches? And what are some of the key considerations that people or run coaches or endurance sports coaches should be aware of when creating content across, different mediums, whether it be YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or things like that?
Yes. I definitely think content is still king. And the good news is, I know a lot of people complain now that it's harder than ever to get seen, which it is.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, as someone who's still continuing to grow, I'm growing on my Instagram, growing not only followers, but leads and opt-ins and all of that. And we can't go into all the details on trial reels and all of that, but that's a great way too. But I think it's a great time I'm spending less time than I ever have on online, like on the app, but I'm growing the most I ever have. And that's
Hmm.
because I've gotten really good at creating at my sales copy or my copy for my posts, and knowing how to create the kind of reels or the kind of content that people want to share or they want to engage with or that speaks to them in a certain way. And so I think the mistake is when you're just thinking quantity and you're just trying to get as much out, which is what it used to be. I used to be told to post 3 times a day on my main feed. And then when stories came out, they're like, you have to be on stories all day. And it's just not true. Because now if you get it on Instagram, if you get a reel that's really doing well or a post that's doing well, the algorithm will continue to show it to people for weeks or even months
Hmm.
to come. And so
Gotcha.
if you're, but the key is you have to get good at it. And that's one of the opportunities we have with the trial reels. If you have them available in your app, is you can practice and get better at it without feeling like it's going to stay on your main feed, and you can work on those things.
Okay.
Um, but I do teach 5 different content like buckets in my program in Runnerizing, and then 4 types of content posts. And so once you understand those, like the content buckets based on your ideal athlete. So those would be like what their struggles, their interests, their desires, their excuses, and their consequences. Once you know that about your ideal athlete, you're kind of creating content around those things every single time you show up. And then there's 4 kinds of posts, and this is where I see people really falling into like one type, and you really need to have all 4. So those are trust type posts, know, like, and sell. So as I was saying, a lot of people don't do the sales ones at all. But the trust is like building your authority or like adding value to people. And it's no longer tips though. So it's like
Okay.
you can provide tips in a way like in a in the sense of do this, but it has to be niche down now. It's like it has to have a storytelling component or something else like that. So there's I think the one that people miss the most is kind of the know and the like type category of posts, which are more of that storytelling, the connection, the like I see you type
Okay.
posts, or like helping people identify a problem. Like if you're able to speak to like what are some of the things that the runners that you want to work with, what are they doing on a day-to-day basis that they think are normal or helping them, but they aren't, right?
Okay.
Like they're not helping them. So like for example, like you're running, I mean, we all know like the zone 2 thing is so overplayed now, but if you're not going to stay, you wouldn't even use the word zone 2, because ideally your ideal athlete, maybe they know zone 2 if they're an advanced runner, but if you're running all your runs at the same pace, right? Like that would be more of an example of,
Yeah.
but even to get more specific in your content, you would say you're running all of your runs are at a 9:15 pace.
Okay.
Something like really specific where you're talking about that. And then you can go into a storytelling about, a client of yours or an athlete or yourself who was always running. They were kind of racing each of their, moderate runs. And once you started working with this person and you were able to show them that sometimes they run 10-minute miles, sometimes they run 7:15s, and you get really specific, that would be a more valuable post than saying, here's why zone 3 is bad for you. Or,
Okay.
like a lot of people are talking about the gray zone.
Right.
But the more that you can in your content speak specifically to their experience, and it doesn't matter if their moderate pace is 9:15, it's better to be specific and say 9:15 than to say moderate pace, because they don't know what that means, right? Like they're
Right.
so like, and you could, with that content, you like, one of the things that's important is making sure that you're getting people's attention with like a hook, or like, which is like the text that's on the actual reel, or the first line of the paragraph, because people's attention spans are so small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
I don't actually think they are, because like we can have this conversation and have an engaged conversation, but when it comes to social media, it's just the way that it is.
Yeah, and you certainly see that. I mean, across everything, right? With news, is like people will read the headline and they'll make a decision on it. Do I want to read it? Do I not? Is this right or is it wrong? Versus even going to like the actual article or the actual meat of it. It's kind of bizarrely fascinating in a not so good way, right? It's like people miss the nuance and the context so much because yeah, they don't ever get that far.
Yeah, definitely.
So for whatever reason, attention span or whatnot. Um, so AI is definitely a thing. It's certainly coming, I think, for every single industry. We certainly see it in the coach platform area. There is more and more AI stuff. How do you see, or what role, I should say, do you see AI playing in helping endurance sports coaches acquire athletes to work with? Or maybe do you see it as a negative? Or I guess, what's your perspective, maybe on a gross level of AI?
Right now, if it comes down to like using AI, I use AI for more like create taking data from multiple sources and moving it together so that I can teach it in a post or in my community or something. But in terms of like creating content for you, if you're using Chat GPT to create your content, I'm pretty sure it's not doing well. That's what,
Okay, okay.
because again, going back to the human element, it's no longer about tips. Like ChatGPT can make you a nice little paragraph blurb, and I will be able to tell immediately that you wrote it with ChatGPT based on the way it's written and the emojis. But it's not going to speak to someone the way that a human being will.
Yeah,
And with time, maybe that'll change. So I'm not saying that it's not that ChatGPT won't, but right now, I think because of the information overload in general, people want more connection or specifics. Like I even took I took all of the intake forms from my group coaching program and like their struggles, and I put it into Chat GPT and said, like, could you like summarize or like create some posts or whatever? And they weren't very good.
okay.
I just gave
Okay.
you all this information, and I still feel like it kind of just summarized it. And again, we're going back to like, you want to be specific. So the best place to go get information, like specifics for a post, is not asking. You might ask Chat GPT for the summary or like a high level or like maybe an overview. And then you need to, which I do admit, I asked it to do something recently and it said like insert your own story here or like a story here.
Okay.
But the best place to go is actually, like I said, to your own clients, or like even if you only have 4 clients or 1 client, and like you need to look at your conversation with them. What were the exact words they said on your onboarding survey or your email, or when they reached out to you, why did they want to hire you as a coach? Use their words, because that's the most important. That's going to be the best source of content. And then
Okay.
with when you niche down, I always encourage people to choose a niche that they have some kind of personal struggle or experience with, because then you can just use your own experience or struggles to connect with people. It's just so
Yeah.
much more powerful when you've gone through something than when you have, even if you've coached people through it. So that's the power of, I think, really niching down so that people feel understood.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It's funny. I had a call earlier today with this gentleman who's based over in Warsaw, Poland. His business is called Endurance Translations. They do language translations for the endurance sports industry. And I'm like, wow, what a unique niche kind of thing.
Yeah.
Didn't even think anything like that even existed. But I think a lot of coaches, I know when I first started off as a personal trainer, the theory was, oh my gosh, I have to pay the rent. I got to just take everyone that I can. But in doing so, I was much less effective and I just blended in and no one ever saw me.
Yeah.
But it's like the illusion of what it is, I think is very different than the reality versus saying, okay, this is exactly who I work with. It appears, right, that you might be making yourself too small, but the reality is probably the opposite.
It's the complete opposite. If you aren't niching down, you're just blending right in with everyone.
Yeah.
So I actually have a good example of this because we were just driving to Mammoth. We did the Mammoth Trail Fest
Oh, cool.
race this past weekend, which was so fun. I'm not normally a big trail runner, but it was incredible. But on the way up, apparently this is like, it must be the weed capital of the California. And so like, as we're driving, there's all these like dispensary ads. And then there was a CPA firm that had an ad, I had a billboard, and the billboard said, we do accounting from, I think it said from like seed to basically to the store, seed to
Oh,
and so like they specialize in cannabis
wow.
producing or selling companies. And I was like, that is a niche. They are
Yeah.
so niche down. They have a billboard. And like if you were in the cannabis industry, you'd be like, yeah, I want that person to be my
100%.
accountant, right? Whereas like if they
100%.
just had a billboard that said accountants, like you're not like, why would you ever call them? Like I
Sure.
literally remember that billboard because of that reason. And it's the same if you the more specific you get in the I mean, online with the way that social media, you can reach anyone. And if you do want to run ads at some point, like the algorithm will find your people and they're out
Yeah.
there. I think we can sometimes think like, especially when we first start, that whatever this like quirk or this nuance that we have, that no one else is feeling that
Yeah.
way because our friends and our family aren't that way. And so we start to think that we're the only one. But once you really put yourself out there, and sometimes it takes being vulnerable to share some of the struggles you've had or challenges or thoughts or negative thoughts. Like I did a post recently about, being rejected from Boston twice and not being that super talented athlete, and the thoughts that I've had that are pretty negative. And it was one of my most engaged
Mm.
and shared, and like the conversations that came out of that were so genuine and real. So it's just like, don't be afraid to share those things that are kind of scary to share, or to like believe that someone out there is like you or needs you as their coach.
Yeah.
Like one of my clients, for example, is she works full time, so she only wants doesn't need a ton of one-on-one athletes, but we basically, when we were working together, decided that her niche would be marathoners or half marathoners who work full time. And
Mm.
so her content now, instead of it saying like how to fit in running, it's like she's using posts that say, you know, how to get, like, you have a meeting come up on your schedule when you were meant to run, here's what to do, right? Or here's how I
Got it.
handle it. And then she's able to connect with those women who are working full time in a way that other run coaches just wouldn't be able to connect with them.
Sure. Yeah, it's super smart. I mean, you definitely have to be authentic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so if a coach is brand new, so one of our coaches, for example, that, passes their certification, has never done run coaching before, maybe to your point, they're full-time in another job, another industry. What are the first steps that they should take to build their business?
So the first step is not to make a website. That's what I always say.
Okay.
Like everyone's like, I need a website.
Right.
Make a Google form. Just have to make a Google form. And then if someone fills it out, you just email them. Like it doesn't have to be fancy to start. So don't feel like you have to have the pressure of all of that. I say the first thing to do is announce to your current network that you're a coach. So I have a script that I give to people who are in this situation where it like helps them outline it. But it's like letting people know very clearly that you have an announcement, because otherwise you're just going to scroll right by. And
Okay.
then letting them know that you're a run coach and this is why you became a run coach. And telling some kind of story about why you did this or why running's important to you. And if you do know the kind of client, the athlete you want to work with, you can mention that. But I do think when you very first that announcement, you just need to share like the passion about why you're doing it, and then let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can work with you. And if they know anyone who's a runner, like a refer, like to spread the word. I think that's the first and foremost, because then people are going to start asking you or thinking about you later. And then even if you want to go as far as to like actually individually message, so whether it's the Facebook announcement, also you could email people, like you need to get the word out. It's just like, imagine if you started a bakery down the street and then you just opened the bakery and then you're like, hope people come. No, you would tell like all of your friends and
Of
family,
course.
come to the bakery, even if they're not runners. So it's like, don't, when you first announce, you need just everyone to know that you're a run
Yeah.
coach. And you need to also get past the idea that like, you don't know what you're doing because you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
For sure. And if you are more comfortable taking on people unpaid at first, I would definitely set some stipulations of like how long you're going to do unpaid. So say like,
Good
I
point.
will coach you for 3 months or 6 months. Cause I've definitely had clients who they're in this situation where they've been free, like coaching someone for free for like 9 months and they're like a
Right.
friend, they feel awkward. And so it's like, make sure you give a boundary on when that's going to happen. And then from there, it's like doing your research on, again, finding your niche. I think from the beginning, when you open an Instagram account, or I actually recommend that you just change your personal account to a business account.
Okay.
Unless you really love sharing pictures of your kids on your Instagram and have this following, I just recommend just keeping the same account. And then the people who aren't interested, they'll either unfollow or they won't. But most people don't have a ton of people, but having 2 Instagram accounts is just, no, it's too much work. So
Yeah.
just have one and then, do some market research. But again, if you're going to niche, pick something that you are personally passionate about, have personally struggled with, and then it's just so much easier to share about it and to
Yeah.
understand. So you can do some market research by like, I think I even heard it on your podcast where this one coach was like looking at Reddit forums, but that was genius. Is, figuring out what you want to say, but really just starting. So just start sharing
Yeah.
because it doesn't, again, I have this framework and there's all these ways, but like how I started in the beginning was just sharing and just
Yeah.
testing. And I really think you do have to be pretty scrappy in the early days, like do whatever you can. And if you're a type of person, like I love the online space and it's not going to make as much sense for me to show up in person. I'm also not as approachable in person as I am online. Like I have a bitchy resting face and I'm not like the most warm person in like group situations. So to me, the idea of like going in person to like a run club and then like announcing that I'm a coach and doing a presentation in the beginning, like that would have scared me too much. But if that
Sure.
is your personality, then do that. Like go in the community. And I've had tons of people join me from in-person connections, but it's more of like a slow burn. Like they get to know
Okay.
me and then like eventually they come to me. I'm not like that bubbly. It's like know your strengths and weaknesses. But
Yeah.
if you, at the end of the day, you have to kind of enjoy some aspect of the marketing. So finding what it is that you like. So I love writing. So the blog in the beginning was really helpful. And then now with Runner Rising, the podcast feels really comfortable to me. I find it the most genuine way to communicate. Even though I love Instagram too, but I feel like I give the most value through the podcast. So it's like really experimenting. I think in the early days I ran like, I would and I still actually recommend clients do this, is running like free workshops or just like online, just doing anything you can to get the word out and to kind of experiment with what works and what motivates people and what gets conversations going and just being curious and then constantly adapting and knowing it's just going to take time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that point. The first thing you said, that not the website. I've talked to several coaches that, I mean, it's been one of them, it's been, I think, over a year and they're still tweaking their website. It's got to be perfect. The logo's got to be perfect. This picture has to be, and it's like this is what they believe to be the cornerstone of their success or lack thereof as a coach, is how good their website looks. And it's that, progress over perfection. I mean, they've been at this over now for a year and they've still not launched because they're still working on their website.
Yeah, no, you can do a Google form. It's
Yeah.
like very simple. Just a little description at the top and then do a call and like
Yeah.
get on the phone with people. And in the beginning, like just get on the phone with as many people as you can, just to like, again, hear what they're saying, their words. If you can record it, or if you can just write notes afterwards, like what did they say? Even if they don't hire you, it's like, what did they say they wanted? And then use
Sure.
that in your content.
Yeah. It's a great point. Um, So, what would you say are the three most impactful things that a coach can do to get athletes, whether it be a new coach, sort of seasoned, or an experienced coach? And maybe they're different at all levels, but if you could maybe summarize three things that you found to be really impactful to help acquiring athletes.
Definitely the niche. I was going to say it again. So
Okay. Yep. Yep.
when I niched down originally, that was when my business completely took off. And
Okay.
um, creating an offer, it's like not just like deciding like this is my ideal athlete that I like to work with. It's like making all of your like your offer, like your coaching offer supports that. So
Okay.
like as a certified endurance nutrition coach, my one-on-one coaching also includes the nutrition side, right? And I'm talking about that. So it's like, what is that like little standout thing that you can have in your offer that matches your niche? So it's like, it's not just creating that, and the content all has to go with it. So again, knowing those 5 buckets and then making the content around that. I think that's number one. And then the second thing is, or I guess number one is creating the niche. The second one's the content. And the third one is building the email list. So
Okay.
I'm a huge believer in email lists. It's people are way more likely to, it builds more trust because you can talk, you can do the newsletter, like a weekly newsletter as however you want. But I encourage you to do it in a way that you feel that's more personal than social media. You don't have to do the crazy, you can do the hook as the subject line, but it doesn't have to be as quick, right? So you can go deeper. I just think there's like social media, like Instagram allows you to go surface. And then the next is to go deeper in some way. So whether it is maybe YouTube or podcast or a newsletter, but a way for you to connect on a deeper level with people. So you can build your email list through different ways, through, free resources or workshops, or for me, I did it based on creating hybrid run schedules with online strength training programs. That helped originally build my list. And then now I have other ways that I build it. But having the email list is really important because, if something happens to Instagram, you don't own
Your
followers there. Plus they say, like, as we all know, like 2 to 3% at most of your followers even see your posts. And then I think also with just like people are not spending or they're trying not to spend as much time on there, but they're still checking their email. So I think getting in people's inboxes is important. So having a strategy for that. And then the last one is actually telling people that you have an offer for them, that you can coach them, and putting yourself out there for that. So yeah, those are the most impactful things. And that's, basically what I teach in my program is that that 4-step process of doing that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, as you alluded to, many times already, it's so interesting to me and so fascinating that people spend all this time, creating a website and doing all this due diligence, getting certified. And then when it comes to sales, it's like a 4-letter word. They're like, oh God, no, I can't do that. I don't want to come off as, and so what I've always found is it's almost it's sort of like this polarized thing. Either they don't sell or they're just spammy and it goes over the top. There's rarely that sort of sweet spot in the middle where it probably should be. It always seems like, but I do think, to your point, certainly maybe because coaches, they want to help people, and they, versus, even though they do want to monetize it, it always seems to be, maybe skewed towards that side where they're just scared to sell for the image of what it may appear to be.
Yeah. I think when you think of it as, it always helps to think about, first, you're confident in your own offer. Like I feel 100% confident if someone joins my program, they're going to get the results they want. They're going to get great service. They're going to be supported. They're going to learn so much. And I think sometimes, again, taking the results part out of it, right? It's like, we can be afraid to be confident in what we're offering because we're like, well, I can't actually guarantee, but you can be confident in your own coaching skills and that you're going to support them. You're going to show up, and they're going to be better off because of you. I think that's what you have to go into it thinking, when it feels scary. And then, sometimes it does mean advocating for helping people overcome their own mental hurdles of why they don't deserve a coach, or they're not fast enough for one, or like being able to speak to those kind of things is important too. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're being salesy. I think, again, also helping people, connecting with them in a more storytelling way, or being more vulnerable with your own stories or your own life, can also help build the trust that encourages people. And also, you don't have to sell as much if your marketing's really good.
That's a good good point.
Yeah. If someone comes to your account and they're like, oh my gosh, she gets me. Like, I can't stop reading that. Like, this is helping me. They get to the point where they're like, I wouldn't work with anyone else. That's what the power of great content and a niche is like, they think there's just no one else I would work with, which also
Yeah.
allows you to A, charge more, but B, also create, if you want, group programs or scalable offers that are allowed you to help more people without it being such one-on-one time, because
Yeah.
we're all capped out at some point on one-on-one.
Yeah. 100%. That is for sure. So speaking of being capped out, I was certainly this way when I started USCA. A lot of coaches struggle with wearing all the hats, and I think this is especially the case if they do have, family, full-time business, and they just have really, really limited time. So, what advice would you give to a coach who's struggling to grow their business because they're too busy managing all the aspects, whether it be building the website, doing the accounting, doing the marketing, doing the actual coaching? It can be a big struggle where, you're just keeping your head above water and you're making some money, you're training your clients, but you don't have the bandwidth or the energy to really grow the business, to scale it. What would be your advice to these coaches?
Yeah, I think one of the things is being realistic with like the ebbs and flows of the season of coaching. I think we all, like, if you've been doing this long enough, you know that certain times of the year, certain times of the month are more busy than others. But then creating those systems for yourself, or like I finalize schedules by Thursday, and then you set aside. I've had clients who, she did a lot of calls on Monday through Wednesday, so she was like, I have to do my content on Fridays, so I helped her
Mm,
stay accountable to that. But then also, one of the things that I teach is, in terms of like that time when you're openly marketing your business, you're saying, I have spots open, I'm looking for athletes to coach for the fall or whatever. Is I teach that you do like a time of each, either it's every month or every other month, depending on how many clients you want, where you're focused on that goal of getting more clients during that 7 to 10 day window. So
mm,
that way, otherwise you just kind of like don't do it. So it's like putting it on the calendar, saying like, so for me, it's the first couple weeks of the month is when I'm more actively selling. I'm more actively doing those promotional type posts. And the rest of the time, I'm doing more of the other kind of content that's just creating more trust and engaging with people versus selling as much. And I think that can help, because then you don't feel like you're always on, or you always have to be doing it. And you know that you have that accountability to go actually do it.
yeah.
But again, you have to make the time for it. So it's like creating the systems in general in your business. And if you're, obviously, hopefully no one's like writing the welcome email from scratch every single time, but having certain things, like even when you're creating schedules, having like, I have like a race day template, and I'm going to modify it obviously depending on the person, but or like every time I do speed work, I have like a saved workout that has the strides and the warm up, and then you just need to start getting more efficient with that. And it's like, again, setting times, like I'm going to check into the coaching software these days or these times and sticking to it. I just
Yeah.
installed a new thing on my phone that blocks, like if I open Instagram or my email or Facebook, it like blocks and it goes to um this other app, and it says like, take a deep breath.
Oh,
And
I love that.
and then it
That's
says, do
awesome.
you actually want to go to Instagram? And I cannot tell you how many times I'm like, no. Why
Yeah,
was I even going on? So it's like you
that's
actually waste
amazing.
a lot more time than you think.
Yeah.
And I did have one client who's a full-time coach, and she's super successful. She hired me though because she was going to have twins, and I have twins too, so that was part of it. But she knew she wasn't going to be able to work as much. So the
Mm,
first thing we did was a time audit, and immediately we saw some things like she was cleaning as soon as the kids went to school, and I was like, do you need to clean right away when that's like and I asked, so is that your best brain power time? So recognizing like, when is the time that you have the
mm,
most creative brain power? And if you don't, like, if you could start the day by not going on social media and immediately just creating a post and not checking in with clients yet, and then just doing that at first thing and then getting it done, whether you post it then or you send it to a mentor for review, or you do like it's done, but you've done something creative, and then go on and check in and all of that. Right. I think that can make a big difference. Otherwise you end up just scrolling and getting in your
yeah.
head, and then you don't write a post at all because now you've compared to everyone else.
Right. Right. That's a really good point. I love that. That was great information. I mean, I feel like, if you don't mind me asking, what is the name of the app, that the one that
Oh,
says like,
it's
do you
called
really
one
want to?
one sec.
One sec. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I need that in my life. So I appreciate that.
I did the trial version. The only bad part about the free version is like if you like you're on Instagram, you're working, and I need to like go click a link or like copy something, it would like make me do it again. So
Oh, okay.
I ended up doing the paid. It's only $20 a year, but I ended up doing
Okay.
the paid version because it lets you like go in and out of the app for like 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, I was like, I don't want to breathe again. I just want to do my work.
Right. That's very cool. Um, so, you've already mentioned several times kind of how you do things or what the structure looks like when you're working with athletes and coaches. But maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how Runner Rising helps coaches find new athletes to coach. If there's, again, without, obviously giving away the entire playbook, if there's any things that kind of maybe a high level view of what Runner Rising does.
Yeah. So I basically created it because I wanted to give coaches the opportunity to create like a marketing system. Like I was saying, I'm big on systems that they know they can just rinse and repeat, and it's going to bring in clients month after month.
Okay.
Whether it's not going to be predictable every single month, just like anything, but it's going to be the system that you can rely on that works, and you're going to keep doing it. So I think, so many people are trying to be they're just posting those generic tips. They're throwing content up there. They're not really having a strategy. They're just shouting out athletes when they have success and hoping that that means that someone's going to figure out that they need to go back to their profile and click on a link and send them, it's just like you have to make it easy for people and you have to make it very clear. And I think that a lot of times we overcomplicate things and we forget, we take the kind of the crickets or the non interactions with our content or with our marketing to mean that no one wants it or it's not
Hmm.
or you were not good enough or that someone else is better, but it's
Yeah.
really a lot of times it's just your strategy. Like you got to fix the strategy, but you also have to fix the mindset too. So that is a component as well, as like gaining that confidence that you can do this. And I think having a roadmap to follow is just so helpful. I know I always use the analogy of when I potty trained my twins and they, or when I potty trained my first daughter, actually, there was like, if you ask people, you're like, hey, how do what I'm potty training, like, what do you think I should do? And you get like 20 different answers. And then
Right.
as you're potty training, and it's going horrible because it's so hard. It's like literally was the worst, especially with the twins, the hardest thing I ever went through.
Yeah.
Parenting, which is probably a blessing. That's the hardest thing, but the potty training with two of them during the pandemic, it was terrible.
Oh, geez.
And like when you're in the trenches and it feels hard and you don't have a roadmap, you don't have a mentor, you don't have anyone, you just start to think it's not worth it, or you start to
Yeah.
like give up on your dreams and like you think it's not possible for you. So
Yeah.
not only is it the step-by-step course, which I do now sell standalone, but I think the real magic is in having not just the course, but then having the mentorship
Yeah.
for me. So I have one-on-one option where we meet, you go through the course and then I like review your content. I give you suggestions for the niche because almost always people don't get clear enough on the niche. And then I walk you through the entire process. And then also I do a group cohort, which I haven't done since January, but I'm going to open one up, especially now that we're going to be, or I'll be part of USCA. So
Yeah.
open up a group cohort, and that's great because then you get to learn from the other coaches as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's a mix of learning the course, having the process, but then also having that feedback, that support, just like we all want people to hire us as run coaches. And it's like same thing with your business, having that coach to guide you so
Yeah.
that you're actually staying consistent and doing the right things. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. So last question for you. Um, and I think a lot of our coaches, one of our sort of taglines at USCA is coach your passion. And I think most people get into this because of their passion. A lot of people always just want it to be a side gig, but I think there's a fair amount of people that want it to be their full-time thing. They're just maybe not sure how to get there. So any tips, for the people that are listening to this, coaches that are listening to this, from how do they take it from a side gig to a full-time gig? And I know that's obviously a loaded question. There's a million variables, but any just general thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know we focus a lot on strategy today. So my answer for this one is definitely the mindset. So the mindset
Okay.
of this is going to be full time. And I told the
Mm.
story earlier of me having a few of those moments where it was like, okay, no, I'm doing this. Like, I want to be there for my kids after school, but it was so far away, right? 5 years down the line. It's really like having that bigger vision, like same with with running, right? We want to have like, where are we going with in the long term?
Yeah.
But then also giving yourself some serious short-term goals and setting up the systems and the marketing to actually do it, because it's so easy to say, I want this, but it's much harder to actually go do it. And it's kind of like it has to be, in a lot of ways, I think for full time, there are people I feel like who have naturally fallen into it, but the vast majority, it's a grind. It's like, it's just like my attempts to qualify for Boston. It takes a long time. So I started my business in 2016. It was a full-time income by 2019. So 3 years, again, having twins in that time, and it was very part-time. But then from when I really made that shift, when my husband got laid off and right before I had the twins, to my first 6-figure year was in 2021. So if you had asked me in 2016, like, it's going to take you 5 years to make 6 figures as a coach, I would have been like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that seems like a really long time.
Yeah.
But once it happened, I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe that I've done this. And you just keep growing and learning from there. And I do think it's just like the baby steps. Like, the first goal was to consistently make like, 3,000 a month. And then it was, the next amount, and what you have to back in. Again, your offers have to support your income goal. So I think that's another issue that people have, is they're like, I want to make 6 figures. And then, like, are you doing the math on how many people you need to coach at your current price to get there? And if the math doesn't math,
right,
you can't handle enough, you would either need to raise prices, you need to offer a community or a group coaching or something else to get there. And that is one of the number one steps. You can't expect to get to the full time if your current offer is not set up to get you there.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something you need to think about. But I would say overall, it's like not waiting for the confidence, not waiting for the signs before you invest in mentorship or you decide to commit to whatever it is, to take those next steps. Because what you're doing now is not getting you there. So you have to change something,
right?
If you're, part-time, and, sometimes you just have to be scrappy too in the beginning. You have to be intentional, but you also have to just take those risks and say, okay, sometimes I'm just going to try this. And if it fails, then at least I learned something. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for a lot of coaches, I know I was this way when I started USCA, I have a couple pennies to rub together and I have to make these 2 pennies go as far as they can. And I think a lot of people view, what you just said, like mentorship. Do I 100% need it to do what I need to do? Probably not. As far as it's not as necessary as having, say, a Google sheet or having a LLC or whatever. And they view these things as expenses versus investments. They can't, it's almost like, when you buy a stock, it's what it is today and hopefully it'll grow in the future. But I think so many coaches and entrepreneurs in general view things as expenses versus investments. And I think that what you said, sort of that mind shift, is what will allow them to spend the money on the right things that will really help the growth versus, like you said, well, something's not working. So you got to change something. And ideally someone that's already been there, done that, or in your case, been there, done that, and now helping a lot of other people out doing it is obviously money well spent.
Yes, I agree. I have a business coach. I have a run coach. I've invested thousands of dollars in coaching over the years, and it's always worth it. It's always, it makes you even it overflows into every area. So even if you don't have a business coach, at least have a run coach if you're a run coach, in my opinion. And like you learn, as I learned from my run coach, it's like we all learn from being coached. And again, being in community, using the Facebook group, or I don't know if you guys are going to have another summit or, in-person conference, but like getting out and doing those things. Okay. One last thing though on that is also, when you are building a business, the vast majority of people out on the street and in your life are not self-employed. They're not entrepreneurs. They have an employee mindset. And so one of the things you can do that is literally almost free, and I mean, if you have a library, is checking out personal development books and business development books, and getting in the room, like listening to our podcasts, and listening to entrepreneurs and what are they saying and what are the everyone's listening to this, so they're already one step ahead. But really being conscious with where your energy goes, because even if, they say you're the combination of the five closest people to you, and if you don't have someone that you're aspiring to in that group of five, you either need to hire them, or you need to just like pretend like they're one of your best friends by listening to everything they have, right? Or their podcasts, or like create your own person in your life that's gonna they're gonna aspire to be, because the truth is it's just so much easier to, in a lot of ways it's easier just to get paid by the hour and clock in, clock out, but
Yeah.
it's very worth it to be a coach and to do something you love and to make a huge impact. And but it's not always easy.
Yeah, but I think that's a great point. And I never heard anyone say it perhaps as sort of eloquently as you just did, that, yeah, most people aren't in that mindset, right? So I do think that, like, I remember when I first started US Guy, I did ask around for advice. Is this a good idea? Should I do this? Is this like the dumbest thing ever? And most of the feedback I got from people who were being genuine were it's a terrible idea. Most small businesses fail. It's way too niche. Who cares about endurance sports education? That's just weird anyway. Like, there's already national governing bodies that do this. And I do think if that's a community you talk to, when you really listen to it and you buy into it, you won't start, right? Because it's just, then it becomes way too risky and way too stupid and way too whatever. So I do think that's one thing I've learned, is surrounding yourself, as you said, with like-minded people that can still give you critical, feedback. It's not always going to be, sunshine and rainbows, but they have that same sort of growth mindset, entrepreneur mindset. And I do think that's important. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I mean, I can't tell you still how people are like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, people pay you to make a schedule for them. Like, and they don't even, and you just have to let go of that,
Yeah.
right? Like, they don't understand it. Maybe they don't respect, they probably think you make like, $10 an hour. I don't know what they think, but
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah. Yeah. You're just the crazy person over there doing whatever you do.
Yeah. But on the flip side, I get people all the time. It's like, even my mother-in-law is like, you're so, always saying how inspiring or how
Yeah.
motivating I am and how incredible I am. And I mean, I'm lucky to have a lot of people that support me in my life, but I've also worked with coaches who don't. And whether it's spouse too, that's another hard one, is when the
Sure.
spouse is not supportive. And I would say, if your spouse isn't supportive, the number one thing you can do is show them through the money.
Yeah. You're right. Good point.
And get some clients and say, I have 5 clients, I'm making $1,000 a month, and you should help me like this, take this seriously now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that, if your spouse isn't supportive, and a lot of people's are, but sometimes they don't get it, right? Especially if it's
Yeah.
taking time away from them. So
Right.
time you spend with your family. So communicating that is important too,
Yeah.
I would say.
No, it's a great point. That's a great point. And I think it's probably more prevalent than maybe a lot of people think, the supportive spouse thing. Um, well, thank you so much for joining this podcast. Is we've spoken about many times, you will be joining USCA as a mentor. So any of our USCA coaches that are listening, that will be, all of her information will be up on the mentor page very shortly. You can have a direct conduit to working with Nicole. If any of you guys want to check out her website, go to runnerrising.com. You can also obviously contact her through that medium as well. And if any of our listeners are interested in a USCA certification, you can use the code ATE75 for $75 off. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. This was great information. I certainly learned a lot. Even though I'm not coaching athletes, I've learned a lot that could help on the USCA side. So selfishly, I really appreciate this time on this podcast as well. And yeah, and I look forward to being on yours, and I look forward to having you
Yeah.
as a mentor.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's great.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole.
Welcome.